All right, so let me get my questions. Sorry. Oh, you're almost done, huh? We're almost done, at least.
Almost. We'll see. I keep getting
I
stopped
know,
everywhere, which
huh?
is not a bad problem to have. Don't get me wrong.
Oh yeah, no problem. Okay, so I read all the books, and I was like happy with how everything ended. I love Adrian. I totally fell in love with
He's
him.
lovable. He's
Yeah.
lovable.
So basically, what my first question is like, have the Vampire Academy's Bloodline series completely ended, or will you be elaborating on, like, say the blood of the cured Strigoi, the former Strigois, or on Neil and his son and stuff like that?
They haven't ended, but they are definitely on an unspecified length break. I need to kind of recharge and take a break from those guys. If I tried to write a book about any of them right now, I don't actually think it would be that good, which I'm sure is hard for fans to hear, because they're so kind. They're like, no, everything you write's great, and I'm like, no, believe me, I need a break from these guys. You need a break from these guys, and so I think once I've had some time to do some other things and just sort of think about, okay, what's going on with these guys now, I think it'll be better. So it could be years down the road, or I could put out a short story or something as a placeholder in the meantime. But there's just no concrete plans at the moment. But I haven't officially closed the door.
Oh, okay, great. So then, with the Ruby Circle out, what was the most difficult thing about writing the Ruby Circle?
Just wrapping up as much as I could, while also, again, kind of leaving an opening, because I wanted there to be things like, we can jump back to if we did do a future book. But wrapping up things was definitely hard, and Ruby Circle was written after I had my second son. Not long after he was born is when I started writing it, and it's super stressful to try to balance that with a newborn. And someone came to a signing of mine, and they had like Last Sacrifice and Ruby Circle, and they're like, these are both the last books in a series, and Last Sacrifice is twice as big as Ruby Circle. And I said, I didn't have kids when I wrote Last Sacrifice. I could just go on and on and on. So that was the hardest thing, because you're always juggling family and books, and ultimately family does come first, but I still want to put out a good book at the same time.
Yeah. So I guess then, was there anything that you wish you had time to write about? I guess there was, or
I mean, it's hard. Whenever I turn in a book, I always beat myself up over what could I have done to make it better.
Yeah.
Maybe with Ruby Circle, I could have done a few more passes, or maybe that's it. Sometimes I think I can revise, and it's really just kind of hit its finish point. But I do. I always, when I finish a book, I'm actually usually pretty down on myself, which apparently is common for authors. I learned earlier today, but I usually think it's no good, and then some time passes, and I'm like, no, this is okay.
Oh, wow. Let's see. Who? I guess. Let's see. Sorry. Was there anybody that you based those characters off of?
There's no character that's been like someone I know directly imported into the book. I mean, the characters, they're such a fusion of different things. They're people I know and don't know, like elements I'll see in the world, like, oh, that's a funny little quirk, and I'll file that away. And maybe it's something that amuses me, and I file that away and put it into it. And so the characters end up as kind of just a blend of a lot of different things.
Okay, so what about Soundless? Can you tell us, something that we don't know already, or just basically what it is about?
I'm not sure what's out there, so I'll just, I'll give you the premise. It's a standalone, so not a series, fantasy book set in a world I've just kind of made up that's inspired by elements of ancient China. And it takes place in this remote mountain village where people haven't been able to hear for generations. And so they've developed a whole society that doesn't involve sound. And the protagonist is this teen girl who's an artist, which makes her an important person in a society like this. And she wakes up one morning and she has her hearing back. And no one's had hearing, again, for centuries. And so she doesn't even know how to describe it, because she doesn't use sound words as part of her daily routine. And so she goes on this quest to sort of figure out what's going on with her and what's going on with her village. And a young man she used to be romantically involved with goes with her. So there's all sorts of complications along the way with that, but it's cool. There's a little adventure, a little romance, and it's a fun thing. I think people are going to like it at the end of this year. And then there's secret stuff I can't talk about coming next year. So there's always more Richelle Mead books in the world.
What made you? I mean, what made you think of like Chinese folklore, or I guess mythology?
It's a fascinating place to me. I mean, I've always loved fantasy, and a lot of the fantasy we read in the U.S. it's Western inspired.
Yeah.
A lot of English and German, which don't get me wrong, I love all of that too. But the China, which just has this thousands and thousands of years of culture and folklore, I feel is neglected and is good to use. And I also just think there's a shortage of diverse YA books out there. I used to be a teacher, and I would see kids who we want to read books with characters like me, and I think a lot of times kids in high school they're given books like a great book, The House on Mango Street is a really good book, but it's about coming from a different culture and fitting into this culture. And I would find kids that are like, no, I know what it's like trying to be the outsider. I just want an adventure story with a kid who doesn't have white skin. I don't want to talk. Let's not talk about social issues. Let him just be badass, and that's it. And so that's kind of I always had that in my head. Like let's do an adventure story, and here we go. Drawn on that.
Do you plan on including diversity is a big thing these days. Do you plan on including any other or LGBTQ characters or any other races or nationalities involved?
I'm not sure I can think of any concrete plans. There might be some elements in the stuff I can't talk about, but it's always something that's on my mind, and I'm very conscious of it to use it wisely, because sometimes I feel people, it sounds so strange, but it's used as like a gimmick. Yeah. It's just like, wow, look how, look at me, and I don't want it. It needs to feel real and be meaningful and be like, this is an important thing, to have in our books and in our world. And so I want to be conscientious and just use it all correctly, I guess, which sounds really strange.
Oh, that sounds I mean, I'm actually I am, because I did see the cover myself too, and I loved it. It's beautiful. I mean, it's not only beautiful, but the fact that the main protagonist is shown as somebody from a different race, from an Asian race, and it's for me, obviously, it's something that strikes to me. So I like that. I like the I like that you're able to challenge yourself. I mean, was it challenging writing it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Because the fact that you're obviously not Chinese,
right? Yeah, and that's something to be cautious of too. I mean, and that's not to say you can't write about other people different from you. I think that's a terrible misbelief that can be out there. But yeah, it was again something I wanted to be respectful of, and even though it is fantasy and not strictly historical, I wanted to make sure I got elements of that culture correct. All the names, there's Chinese names translate, like there's different ways of writing them in English, and it's just there's a lot, and so even in a fantasy you had to be on top of it. And the deaf and hearing thing is also, I mean, there's a whole other population as well to be respectful of, and and thoughtful of how to address that. So yeah, it was definitely a lot of things I had to think about, and I hope I did justice to it. Yeah. And if I didn't, I hope people understand it was with the best of intentions. And at the end of the day, I do think it's just a good story with very human characters, trying to protect the ones they love, and that's universal to everyone, really.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Richelle. Can I take a picture?
Yep, absolutely.